Well, welcome back. We're playing some happy music on Tri-City Sports Now. I'm Marky Billson. Adjusting my tie right there. I'm like Rodney Dangerfield here. I don't get any respect. I do. I am the Rodney Dangerfield. I'm not going to say local sports talk here. But we're also ahead of the curve. Want to remind everyone that Mr. Cox, Brian Cox, new GM of the Greenville Reds, what happened there? And how did he get the job? You're going to be a guy from New Orleans, and then he was on this show, and now Cox is going to be on the show. Anyway, used to be the GM of the Tennessee Smokies, so you're going to get some experienced and good experienced leadership from the Cubs organization now joining the Reds. But he's going to be the general manager down there in Greenville. We're going to have him on his first day of the baseball season. Adam Nelson of HoopDirt.com will join me on Friday talking a little bit about the Final Four, but really talking about coaching changes in college basketball. We mentioned yesterday we had on John Hooper, SoCon John, talking. He's got a nice story up, by the way, on midmajor.com about Mark Prosser, the next, he is the new, I guess he's the next as well, head men's basketball coach at Western Carolina. What can he do down there? I mean, is Western so isolated and so out in the country that an urban sport like basketball, you're just not going to, those French lick culture just isn't going to, fly anymore in hoops? And so, you're doomed to failure there. Mark Prosser, of course, Skip's son. We'll have to find out. I know that he told me, did John Hooper, that he thought that Prosser got the job due to his, everybody gets their jobs this way, contacts. Example that he'd been the Winthrop assistant. His name, Prosser, that this was how he landed the job, because after all, within this decade, he had a 5-23 season in Brevard, and then went back into becoming an assistant. So they're taking a bit of a risk, is he Joey Meyer? Or will he be able to lead the Catamounts to their first NCAA tournament appearance since 1996? They've only made one. Played Purdue, top seed in that year's tournament. Like I said, I've talked about this. Can still see. Last second shot, Frankie King, future Laker, taking it. Hits off the back of the rim. Otherwise, Catamounts are going to the field of 32. Which I guess is what the NCAAs used to be, huh? All right, Tri-City Sports Now. I mentioned this. I was going to talk about this. Tanking, football, basketball, baseball. Here we go. What about this? Joel Sherman, New York Post, writes, I told you I was reading the New York Post here for my show prep, but I really like this story, and it is, and I'm holding it up right here on our Facebook broadcast, which you can watch on my own personal Facebook page. MLB figured everything out, and it's crushing the game. There you go. Too many teams tanking. Just a handful of super teams capable of winning it all. Replay killing the flow of the game. The one-dimensional offensive player being marginalized, perhaps to extinction. This goes for both hoops and baseball, does it not, when you think about it? The Major League Baseball... Now, when we talk about tanking, and I mentioned this, I said there was a rule, I'm really angry about the budget bill that was signed by Donald Trump on Friday. Who isn't? Everybody seems to be angry about it. They don't, because it has something that everybody doesn't like. There's no wall in it. But the thing is that it supposedly is going to keep baseball players in the minors low paid. They don't have as much legal repercussion. They will not be paid a minimum wage. And I do understand the idea of, well, if you paid someone the minimum wage, what does that do? If you're talking about overtime for batting practice, what's going on now? How are you, if the game goes 18 innings, do you get overtime? I understand that. And I think that just the idea is a salaried position. Perhaps that Garrett Brocious can rejoin us on on our broadcast here on Tri-City Sports Now and explain what he'll try to do now. And maybe that's the best way, because like I said, I could actually see, if you were looking at players being paid overtime and all that, yeah, I mean, a guy coming out, look, I know, you're saying it's baseball. They can afford, to pay, the players, even if they were paid minimum wage, overtime for batting practice in an 18-inning game. They're not in any, the franchises are $1 billion apiece. I get that. But at the same time, I am guessing that you work for a company that's financially solvent. And that old thing is, I'll take that other shift. I'd love to work overtime. No, we're only paying you 40 hours, and we're keeping that rigid. That's how it was for me when I worked at the Wheeling Intelligencer as a sports writer. But anyway, so these things are coming about. Now, the idea was there was another bill that Trump signed, President Trump signed, and the feeling was with the tax rules that it may actually prohibit teams from making late season trades, which I actually said, bring it on. Because I have thought, and this proves it here in this article, this proves it. You know what proved it? Last year, American League. Only 5 teams had winning records. Only 5 teams make the playoffs. There were 10 teams essentially liquidating at the end of the year. I know the Angels acquired Brandon Phillips, but even there, I mean, that was an example right there. Here, the Braves acquire Brandon Phillips. Reds are going to pay his salary. Hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a Brandon Phillips finish up his career in Atlanta? He's from Atlanta. And the idea was, well, we might actually have to pay in the future him some more money. Let's trade him to the Angels. Hey, they might make the wild card. I know the Angels had to want him. They weren't just taking him on as a charity case. Phillips is a legitimate player. But that was, you see how Jim Tomei ended his career. Yeah. There seems to be a lot of liquidating of veteran talent. And Major League Baseball and the NBA are quite similar to this. Example. Who's going to win the NBA title this year? I'm going to take the Warriors, not them, maybe the Rockets, Cleveland, San Antonio, or maybe Boston. I guess Philly's getting some attention, but, one of those guys. You can have the field. Who do you think is going to pick the winner here? Give me, like I said, the Warriors, the Cavs, the Rockets, Spurs, and Celtics. You can have the rest of the field. You don't want that bet, do you? Similarly, baseball. Who's going to win the World Series this year? You can probably, I think you get pretty good odds on a 23-team field, not including the Yankees, Red Sox, Chief Wahoos, Houston Astros, Washington Nationals, Chi Cubs, and Los Angeles Dodgers, don't you? Do you want the other 23? No, you're going to want to take the Yankees, Red Sox, Indians, Astros, Nats, Cubs, and Dodgers. And I know that you can say, well, Marky, the Royals did win it in 2015 and such. Okay, fine. Where have they been since then? And it does show you the large and small market discrepancy that what appeared to be a good young team and an exciting team in Kansas City is, liquidated so fast. I know they re-signed their third baseman and all this, but still, top pitcher goes to the Mets, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the idea, though. The tanking, the rebuilding. And by the way, this is nothing new. Billson baseball history lesson. And I mentioned this before about managers. They talk about that managers, or for that matter, coaches being hired to relate to millennials, that sort of thing. That's nothing new. I mean, going with laid-back manager after fiery manager. I mean, talk about the Yankees. They win the World Series in 1978. Yeah, Bob Lemon replaces Billy Martin After a while, the players wanted to kill Billy Martin, right? I mean, Alvin Dark replaces Dick Williams, and the A's win the World Series the next year. Why? People wanted to kill Dick Williams, this sort of thing. Jim Fanning replacing a laid-back manager, Dick Williams, with the Expos. I mean, they do this sort of thing. It's nothing new. At the same time, the Cubs, years ago, they once had, this is in the 60s, the College of Coaches. And it didn't work out. The idea was that they would have a rotation system of coaches and have one head coach, and there wouldn't be a real manager. Didn't work. So when it didn't work, Phil Wrigley said, "Deck with this. I want to go for the real manager. I want to go for the legendary manager. I want to go for the Hall of Fame manager." He's in the Hall of Fame, isn't he? Leo DeRocher. Leo DeRocher said, I remember 1966, "I may have to finish in last place this year so we can finish in first place in the future." Cubs had always lost, so nobody really cared. It's exactly what they did. It's the first time the Mets never finished in last. Cubs finished in last in 66, okay? I mean, so anyway, but he rebuilds the team, even, in that pre-free agency era, finding what players can play, and essentially he finished in last place to be a contender. Should have won the division in 69. I mean, we can get into all that sort of stuff with the Mets and the Cubs and that kind of race and blah, blah, blah. And a black cat and Ron Santos screaming at Don Young and all this. Anyway, point though here is, look at Las Vegas. 7 teams I gave you. Remember those? Red Sox, Indians, Nationals, Cubs, Dodgers, Yankees, Nationals. Did I mention the Indians? Anyway, those guys. They are all pegged to win 91.5 games or more by Vegas. You can bet on one of it. All of them. The rest of the 23 teams, nobody is picked to win as many as 87 games by Vegas. It's a 5-game ahead of everyone else. Think about this. Sounds very NBA, doesn't it? An interesting thing is that as scorned as tanking has been in the NBA, there are a lot of pointy heads that really like Sam Hinkle. He used to be the general manager of the Sixers. Tanked. But the Sixers are now an up-and-coming team. They're now 42-30, I believe. 43-30? Some record like that. Forgive me, I'm right there. This was a really bad team for a long time. The process, they now call it. Landed Philadelphia, a couple of stars. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. I don't follow the NBA that much. But I can tell you this, and the thing is, you talk about tanking. I've never thought that there was that big of a deal on the last game of the season with a team with 71 victories in baseball to start their AAA pitcher on the last game of the year. I've never thought that was hey, let's see what he can do. Yeah, is he ready to join the staff? Let's see, yeah. I mean, what are we playing for here? Yeah, let's see what he can do. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's one of the things with this criticism of tanking. That guy might be better than the veteran you'd send out, for crying out loud. So I've never really believed that. Here's another comparison being made, NBA and Major League Baseball. Long shooters and short relievers. The NBA, and when you had a 3-point shot, it was eventually going to get to this. Why do you want 2 points when you can get 3? It's like thinking field goal before touchdown, right? Well, baseball, and by the way, I do think that you will now see a de-emphasis in paying for saves. I'm seeing Andrew Miller kind of doing this, but now be more in whips, strikeouts, and innings pitch ratio, not allowing home runs, that sort of thing for relief pitchers. And long shooters and short relievers. The Trailblazers, they say not long ago, it is written, Roy Hibbert signed him to 4 years, $58 million. Pacers matched it. Very good center. A center wouldn't make that today. There's not even that much an attempt in offensive rebounding, according to Joel Sherman. Similarly, Pedro Alvarez led the majors in home runs in, what was it, 2013. Broke up a no-hitter in the playoffs with a home run. Basically is an afterthought in the Orioles organization now. He's not paid for leading the league in home runs because not that great of a fielder, strikes out a lot, averages and all that big. He's an Adam Dunn, Dave Kingman, Rob Deere type of player. Or if you prefer, maybe Chris Carter, Mark Reynolds, that sort of thing. Now the money, instead of going to those, strikeout or home run type players, and I find that interesting because I think baseball is becoming more of a all or nothing strikeout or home run derby type game, much to my chagrin, and I think the chagrin of the fans. But it used to be that relievers, hey, dime a dozen. Now people are paying for that middle reliever, for that whip, for that strikeout to inning ratio. The reliever is the new 3-point specialist. The more the better. Now I'll give you this. It's gotten to be, we know that the complete game is up, but how about the 7-inning starter? A starter finished 7 innings in 2014 more than 1,500 times in a baseball game in the major leagues. Last year, it was 2/3 of that, 947. Less than 2/3. Starting pitchers going 7 innings. The past 2 seasons have been the lowest in history in amount of games in which a starter would go 7 innings, and that even includes the strike-shortened 1981 season, where they only played 110-odd games. A third of the season was wiped out due to a strike. It even includes the years where there were 16 teams and 154 games in a season. So, paying for the reliever now, much like not paying for... The starting pitcher is the new center. Think about that. And as I said, I think the days where Clayton Kershaw and those big stud pitchers, the Justin Verlanders getting those fat contracts, I think that's about to go out the window. I think that, they're going to be paying starters less, and Jake Arrieta was a good example of this, and relievers more. Now, the one thing that I do think is that is going to be bad for baseball in the long run, because as the NBA proved, market the stars. Well, if you don't have the complete game pitcher anymore, that's one fewer star. Okay, yeah, a Baumgartner, a Verlander, whoever, those are stars. I'm not debating that. But is Julio Teheran? Really? Is he a star? Probably not. And I think that, you're where it was that every team had a quote-unquote star pitcher. I mean, even back in the day, the Braves finishing the second division every year, they had a star pitcher in Phil Niekro, right? That guy goes 21-20 for crying out loud. Yeah. But today, no. Niekro wouldn't go 6 innings. There is also some talk, and you get this in both baseball, you get this in football. I don't think this is going away, but how replay has slowed down the game. Should we do away with it? I generally don't think so. I think, actually, that we might be trying to get to the point where the computer makes the call all the time, and that referees and umpires are becoming a thing of the past. That's my opinion. Baseball becoming more with analytics. Points, rebounds, and assists. That's batting average, homers, and RBIs. But now it's win shares in the NBA and wins above replacement in MLB. I hate those stats because they're theoretical. I know. Well, you've got to get in with the new. The thing is, these are theoretical stats, okay? This player hits 59 home runs, Giancarlo Stanton. That's a fact, okay? It's not theoretical. In theory, he will win 5 more games than the average player. That is a theory. And that's why I think those stats are overrated. Now, a modern day stat like, I don't know, OPS, that's a different story. That actually happened. Yes, on base plus slugging. He had this many doubles. He was on base this many times. That makes sense. but we're not theorizing that he's getting to first base. All right, same thing in the NBA, basically. Win shares, that sort of thing, the new metrics and all that. You're still, and a lot of this is also how do you grade a defensive player, in both basketball and all this. So it's kind of an interesting idea on what Joel Sherman, and it talks about MLB has figured everything out and it's crushing the game. And basically it's made it so that, baseball kind of has a salary cap now with all the luxury taxes. It's the only sport that theoretically doesn't, but, and teams are kind of realizing, and the American League proved this last year, that, maybe we want draft choices. Yeah, even in the baseball draft. It's important. Ken Griffey Jr. is taken overall number 1. The Pirates number 2 took Mark Merchant. You don't think they would have rather had Ken Griffey Jr.? It's kind of an important thing, And I know you've always got those stories of, Mike Piazza made it as the 62nd round draft choice of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you know what that is? That's the Colts pick up John Unitas off the waiver wire. That's what that's what that is. Okay, I mean, it's just a little bit rebranded. Nothing really all that new about it. And I'm mentioning this is just that, talking about the analytics and such. And the NBA has done this, and also baseball doing this. We could go after an 82 victory season and look good and, kind of have that weak second place, but be able to say that we're a second place team and market that for the future. But that'll cost us a draft choice. That will make us have to pay our veterans more. And we're not getting into the playoffs off of it. Look what happened in the American League last year. 5 teams, only 5 had a winning record. There are only 5 playoff spots. They call it tanking now. It used to be play for the future, rebuilding. NBA has done a lot. Baseball has done a lot. I generally think it's a bad way to go. I also think that, lame duck baseball. I've been to baseball games. My team is out of the pennant race, mathematically eliminated. You never know what's going to happen. A no-hitter. Guy hits 4 home runs. Mike Witt threw a perfect game on the last day of the season. It's baseball. The game is the thing sometimes. Let's watch it. Still at a high level in the major leagues. We've lost that somehow. Got to get it back. Final thought, Tri-City Sports Now, the local flavor of the Food City 500. I'll tell you about that when we come back.
Pony, later.